Hello, my name is Aaron Bond. I am coming to you from Virginia Tech, which is in Blacksburg, Virginia. I work in faculty professional development here at Virginia Tech and teach in the School of Education and the School of Communication department. Today we'll be discussing effective design and delivery for learning. We'll frame this in a very easy to follow, easy to use instructional framework based on Gagne's 9 events of instruction. Robert Gagne was a seminal thinker in instructional design, instructional theory, and educational psychology. He is thought to have bridged behaviorist and cognitivist theories in his instructional framework. As you can see, there are 9 events of instruction. First, we need to gain the student's attention. Second, we need to let our students know what are the instructional objectives for what they are getting ready to learn. Then we need to stimulate recall and prior learning. Now, while I'm saying these 1, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't mean that you actually do these in that order. We just need to make sure that we include all of these instructions in order to follow Gagne's prescription. You would present your content, provide guidance, elicit performance, provide feedback, assess performance, and enhance retention and feedback. We'll take a look at each of these and their importance in instruction and design over the next few slides. One of the first things that we can do in instruction is to gain student attention. By doing this, we're ensuring that learners are ready to learn and they're ready to participate in activities, and it's our job to provide the stimulus to gain that attention. We can do that through demonstration. We can add a little comedy, we can tell a joke, we can use case studies to present a real problem to be solved. We can tell a story. An example of that would be me telling you a story about my time as a K-12 instructor or as a higher ed instructor here at Virginia Tech. It would stimulate the prior knowledge that you have around teaching and learning while gaining your attention. We can have a debate. We can do some brainstorming. We can introduce a poll, use graphics, images, or video. One of my favorite things to do in my classes is to use a video to set the stage for what we're about to learn. Gagne says it's also important to inform the learner of what they're about to learn. In your objective, you should describe the goal of the lesson, state what the learners will be able to accomplish, how they'll be able to transfer the knowledge to their own interest, and how they will be assessed on what it is that you want them to learn. The more mature a student, the more important informing them of what they are about to learn becomes. Stimulate prior recall is a very important part of the learning process. We all come to a learning experience with prior knowledge about a particular subject or topic. What you know can help or hinder what you're about to learn. If you have inaccurate knowledge or inaccurate prior knowledge about a particular topic, that can hinder you from learning the truth about what it is we're about to learn. If you have good prior knowledge, that can help you connect new content with the content that you already have stored in your memory. By stimulating the prior recall, we're helping participants make sense of the new information by relating it to something they know. You can ask questions about previous experiences. You can ask your participants, whether they're students or faculty, about the understanding of previous concepts. I work in faculty development here at Virginia Tech, and working with adults in NLI, the program that I work in, that looks very different. We have faculty from all over the world participating in learning experiences. Some come with extensive teaching experience, some come with very little. And so it's very important that I have an understanding of who my students are so that I can help stimulate the prior knowledge or help mitigate the prior knowledge that they do not have or the incorrect information that they might have. After we've introduced the student to what they're going to learn, we've gained their attention, we've stimulated prior knowledge, now it's time to present the content. it's very important to think meaningfully about how you organize the content that you are providing. You use strategies to present and cue lesson content in a more efficient way. By organizing and chunking your content in manageable chunks, you will make sure that your students are getting the information they need in a way that they can digest it, and in a way that they can move content from the working memory to the short-term memory to the long-term memory. And it's important that we find ways to do that. If in my situation, I work with faculty here at the university, an NLI presentation will look very different than a K-12 presentation, than a higher ed student presentation. And so you have to think about who your audience is and then build the content appropriately. Related to how that we chunk our content is the way that we give students the tools they need to get the information from back out of long-term memory when they need it. Sensory memory, or the visual auditory memory, the things that we hear and see, will not go to short-term memory unless we spend some time practicing it. And from rehearsal and chunking, we will also get it to long-term memory. How that we encode that information, how that we give our self-retrieval cues is an important part of the learning process. It's important to also consider cognitive load. The maximum number of chunks of information that a person can process in working memory at any time is very limited. George Miller said that it was 7 plus or minus 2. More recent research says that it's actually 5 plus or minus 2. You could actually think of this in terms of how many numbers that are in a typical phone number. We can only memorize or hold so much information. To demonstrate cognitive load and the importance of taking cognitive load into account when you're designing presentations or instructions, let's do this exercise. 12 plus 13, that's pretty easy. We can do that in our brain. What our brain, our working memory can do is very quickly associate 12 plus 13 as 25. It's much more difficult for us to process the next number. That number is 83,468,437 plus 93,849,040. My brain can't do that. There are people who can. My brain cannot take those two numbers and work with them in the working memory, at least not in a very easy way. Consider the following. Take just about 10 seconds to memorize these letters. Did you get it? Do you have those? What were they? Now consider the same letters organized in a different way. Your brain might have actually done this automatically. Your brain may, because the brain looks for patterns, it may have actually bunched these things into a pattern for you. Now try to remember. What those exercises demonstrate is how important it is to chunk and give information in manageable doses for your students. After you have given your students direct instruction, they need to have some guidance, some practice with the material in which you guide the practice. You can advise participants of the strategies to aid them in learning content. How do you provide guidance currently? Think through that. After you've guided them through some practice, then it's time for the students to do some performance of their own. It's an opportunity to respond, to perform, to show demonstration of what it is that you've taught them. Think about examples of hands-on activities. What are some ways that your students can get in and manipulate the new content that you've provided? Feedback is a very important part of the process as well. The instructional process is not complete if our students are not aware of corrections they need to make, or if they're not aware of what they're doing well. How do you provide feedback to your participants? Finally, assess learning. You've given your students the content, you've given them guided practice, you've given the student, your participant, hands-on activities, you've given back feedback. Now it's time to assess whether students learn. We can use test quizzes, but if we don't use test or quizzes, how might we do that in a more authentic way? Think through an authentic way to assess whether students have learned the new material. At the end of the instructional activity, make sure that you have provided context for learners to practice in that are transferable, so the skills that they have gotten from your instruction they can transfer to many different situations and problems. And you can help provide recall and retention by giving takeaways or recall aids to help your participants once the workshop or the instructional activity is finished. This is my presentation, and I appreciate your attention throughout the last 10 minutes. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me.